Episode 35, China Talk. I'm your host, Frostgrin. With me, we normally have 3 panelists. One of them is MIA, so we may have to do some shuffling if he decides to show up. But we do have Kelsey Moser with the score and DreXxiN with Esports Heaven. I really had to think about that really hard.
It's okay, you got it. Good job.
Woo! Sorry, it's an awkward opening. Okay, so let's just get into it. Obviously, kind of between the two of you guys are more of the... Raz has a lot of LSPL knowledge. You guys do a lot of historic work with kind of the longer standing teams. You're a little bit more analytical. I know Kelsey's writing is more analytical based. You do analytical work as well as you've done coaching and things in the past. So we can try to cater to that viewpoint a little bit. My fear is that you guys have a reputation of agreeing with each other. And I hate it.
Hey, that's not always true.
Let's start this episode with this. Misaya is overrated and Misaya is trash. Okay, let's go.
Wow. Wait, trash? Okay, that's
trash.
like taking it too far. Okay.
All he did was play Twisted Fate, Mike. We need to accept
No, he didn't. That is bullshit, dude. Didn't you see him play Vladimir at fucking Worlds? Oh my god, I hate you. This is bullshit already.
Wow. This got off to a great start. Okay.
Okay, as we were saying...
there's kind of 3 different topics that I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about, obviously, EDG versus OMG is the big highlight matchup. But otherwise, the past week in LPL was the week of upsets. It was impossible to make a prediction because everyone got upset. We finally saw the downfall of Snake, we saw the uprising of M3, and we saw World Elite finally stop taking it. That was brutal to watch. There's that great gif of Batman when he slaps Robin. Did you see this on my feed, Mike? Where it's like Batman and it's every single team and he's just slapping Robin around and then World Elite's like, no! On IG, and he finally like stops the abuse.
Oh, that's great.
So let's start with, do you guys want to start with EDG OMG or do you want to start with M3?
I'm pretty much fine with either. I know most about the
We're going to
OMG
start with M3.
So. Alright, good job. Thanks. Good job being decisive, because I wasn't going to be.
Oh, it's fine. Because I know Kelsey also wanted to talk a little bit about Dade. So, first and foremost, M3 2-0'd Snake, which I think was probably the most surprising upset, because M3, throughout LPL so far, has been a very bottom-of-the-barrel team. Kelsey, what were a lot of M3's problems? Like, why were they so low-ranked? Or so low in the standings? What were they struggling with?
Frankly, M3 was just bad in terms of team play, and like Dade wasn't showing up. Their bottom lane was really hit or miss. Like Candy would have these games where he'd go off, but as people have said that, yeah, okay, so that went nowhere. But as people have said that, like, Candy would almost need to be replaced for World Elite to do well. And he's been benched a couple of times from World Elite Academy before for other players like SMLZ. He was on WE for a little while. He was benched from that roster for STYC. So people have, and by people I mean even Aaron, have made the claim that for that team to do well, he would have to be replaced. His damage output in team fights isn't that great, so they made him almost... I think the Kalista pick is really, really interesting because it almost turned the support AD carry relationship around, where he became the kind of the guy who allowed Love CD to shine, and that's how they use that pick. Is kind of to get Love CD these engagements, because Love CD has been a pretty solid support so far this split. So just finding Love CD on M3.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So just finding a situation where Love CD can kind of do the engagements and go in and sort of take charge of the game has made them a lot more team-oriented.
I'm glad that you brought up the Kalista pick, because I want to ask this question. We've seen a lot of different Kalistas across LPL by either some of the best AD carries in the world and, people like Candy, so kind of somewhere in the between, or maybe on the bottom of that. How do you think Kalista as a champion has... I mean, if you look at LGD, the Kalista pick obviously made a difference in that team standing and that team dynamic when they play it. And we started to see teams... It's almost like when Lucian was really broken, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, last split, when Starhorn Royal Club suddenly made their crazy rise to the top, it was because Lucian was disabled because he had just been changed in LCS, but he was not disabled in LPL, and they just went on this crazy mad Lucian streak. Do you think Kalista is having somewhat of the same impact in that teams that are able to figure her out are rising and teams that can't are falling?
I feel like as far as impact goes, that might be the truth, but in terms of playstyle, the champions are completely different. And I feel like you almost have to have a completely different mindset to be a Kalista player, because as a Kalista player, you're kind of, like, you can actually afford to be a little more upfront. And a lot of that's because of the way that Kalista's built. Like, firstly, you get a lot of mobility straight up in the beginning, and you're also basically, the gold you acquire in lane is a little bit more lenient towards Kalista, because whereas other AD carries like hit a power spike off BF sword or something, or even like pickaxe, but you can actually just kind of get like a recurve bow and back at 1,000. I think that's actually kind of a big deal. And then on top of that, you can play up front and feel relatively safe just because of how her strafing works, but not just that, but because of like a lot of people rush the Bloodthirster and well, not rush, but they get Bloodthirster and why can't I think right now?
Hurricane?
No, well, Hurricane, obviously. Hurricane's always the rush, but Bloodthirster and, why can't I think of this? Blade of the Rune King, sorry. So there's, like, so much kiting, and you can just, like, kind of soak things up front with lifesteal and shielding. And so I think a lot of players that normally wouldn't do too well have found these champions really strong, or have been really strong on this champion just because of how different it is compared to, like, a traditional AD carry style.
Why do you think someone like Imp has not found a lot of success on Kalista, whereas someone like Lucian or Candy or even STYZ has? Like, what is the difference between these guys' play styles that makes that champion more successful? Or is it not just on the AD carry? Is it on the team dynamic?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I also think that the players that are not favoring Kalista quite as heavily are a lot more like just solid performing already on pre-existing AD carry styles, whereas I think people that are discovering Kalista are actually not the case. I mean, I think that, I mean, obviously any good player should be able to play Kalista if she's overpowered, but I don't know, it does take a different skill set, and I do think it also I think you have to play a team around Kalista a lot differently than other AD carries.
I think we've talked about LGD and Kalista before, where from my perspective it has to do with the fact that their jungle pressure on LGD is really, really lackluster, so that puts a lot more pressure on the support and the mid laner, who are kind of like the secondary jungle pressure roles. And then if Kalista is in lane, if they pick Kalista, PYL wants to roam a lot less, which I don't even think is necessary, and I think I enjoyed this little bit about M3's use of Kalista, is they didn't use it as so much a constraint. If the duo wanted to separate, then they could, and Love CD could roam. But I think that the way LGD uses it is much more restrictive to the 2v2, and I think that makes sense, because at bottom, Imp and PYL are a really good 2v2 lane. But I also think, aside from that, Imp's style is much more brute force related, so that he likes to be a lot more in your face and upfront, and you don't really think of him as like the kiting type hopping around AD carry so much as he'll play a lot of the more auto attack base AD carries. He'll play like some of the assassins that just ambush you like Twitch. I really like him on Graves because I think it allows him to kind of use the quick draw mechanic really well. So it combines like both like the in your face with the use of the Graves passive and the fact that he gets the auto attack speed boost off of the quick draw. So I think that that's a really good champion for kind of his playstyle.
What I find curious though, while we're talking about Imp's champion pool and playstyle, is that he had a good run on Tristana. And Tristana, especially when Imp played Tristana, was very much about that hopping in your face, but also has a lot of those tools that Kalista finds on her kit, and that she has really good disengage, or the ability to kite fairly well with Buster Shot and Rocket Jump, and likewise split pushing in a side lane if she decides to go like, she'll have the Shiv available, you had the explosive shot. So why do you think that hasn't, do you think this is a team call and the inability to split push with Kalista?
I don't think that's, like, Imp uses Tristana to split push, yeah, but I think, again, they're looking at the duo as much more restrictive, but I think the way he also plays Tristana is much more in your face and much less kiting. He doesn't necessarily use those abilities to kite. He uses like the Buster Shot to kind of go in and find an engagement. Like he's a very in-your-face AD carry, and I don't think Kalista is necessarily suited to that playstyle.
I also think that Imp has been playing more siege-oriented champions for his team as well, because I think Sivir is his most played champion. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He's been
for
really
LPL,
favoring Graves lately, but initially, yeah, this is Sivir.
Yeah.
I don't know how viable that statistic is, though, since pretty much everyone was playing Severe.
Yeah, but I mean, it shows a difference in like when LGD succeeded, because they were doing really well with the Sivir pick, and the fact that they could do a lane swap with that and get the early 6 and just move around the map better as a team instead of just relying on Twen or just Twen and Wayless. So, like in the case where they have a Kalista, so they kind of have a lot of people who are able to execute those roams when you have a Sivir pick.
Back to M3. We kind of got off on the tangent on the Kalista there, and Candy finds success on that champion. I know you wanted to talk about Dade a little bit and kind of his performance or his role within Samsung Blue, now moving over into his role in Masters 3. The joke was it was Dade's retirement home. They didn't give a shit. Wasn't playing to his peak performance. He would counterpick himself constantly. I mean, what do you think has changed? Is it really Dade that's elevated the team to now make these upsets?
I don't think... I mean, I do think that maybe Dade's being a little less cocky, but I think a lot of the points you brought up earlier are more likely the case, with Love CD being more engaged-oriented, or having a more engaged-oriented role on the team. Has helped a lot with the team direction and just bottom lane consistency in general. And yeah, I mean, Dade being a little more consistent with his performance and not just intentionally counterpicking himself and just looking like 10% of what he used to be is obviously a helping factor, but I don't think it's like the main reason that M3 is winning, because like Dade, like a lot of people are like tweeting and stuff during those games like, oh, Dade's back, like Dade can win if he tries and stuff, but even then I don't think Dade was like the main factor in those victories. So
Well, it was.
bottom lane synergy and Love CD's more initiation focus. That's what we were talking about earlier.
What, we're not going to talk about Dreams at all? Their new
No,
jungler?
yeah, I think the difference between Dade on M3 and Dade on Blue is I felt like Dade set up Blue to succeed, and right now it's more about M3 taking advantage of and understanding when Dade can do well. So they'll create these situations where like Dreams will gank his lane more heavily. Dreams has been, I think, a lot more active in terms of the team fighting than Raw was. And he's had that role very well, so they kind of used Dade to identify where Snake had their weaknesses, and so Dade was able to play like his Zed, so that definitely suits his strengths, and then they just set up the team for him to excel. And what I mean by like the Zed is a good mid laner against Snake is that Snake has this issue where they have much of their playstyle is built around compensating for Crystal's tendency to overextend. And so Zed can really capitalize on that tendency very well. And then so Snake set out to ban out the jungler for Snake, who plays a lot of Nunu, who plays a lot of Jarvan.
You totally messed up my segue, Kelsey.
I'm sorry.
I was going to apologize, because if DreXxiN hasn't realized, his tags underneath him say Papa Smithy. And I was
Yes.
like, oh no, I introduced Papa Smithy incorrectly, but then I also realized that Beast tags underneath him as Kelsey Moser were incorrect.
Yeah, I'm
You see
obviously...
you see where I was going there? Beast only, it's funny.
Yes, and it's
I get
again, it's not that Beast
Good one.
only plays those champions. I actually thought his Rek'Sai was pretty decent.
Everyone plays a decent Rek'Sai.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not really
Champions-
hard. It's not really hard to be good
Okay,
on that side.
fine. So his Olaf
He
is
plays
bad.
a decent Oriana.
He plays a decent... Okay, his Rek'Sai was pretty good. How's that? That's a slightly more definitive statement.
To what? What standard? Is this, okay, who's the best Rek'Sai in LPL?
The best Rek'Sai in
The
LPL.
best Rek'Sai in LPL.
Spirit.
Okay, bam, Spirit. Who's the worst Rek'Sai in LPL?
The worst Rek'Sai in LPL. This is a really good question. I
It's
see
like
your
super
point.
specific. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you see my point now?
I see your point, but I think Loveling's Rek'Sai is actually really terrible. But we can get into that.
Okay,
That's some
from
other
Loveling
day.
to Spirit, where's Beast?
I don't know. He's not. He's towards the middle at least in his Rek'Sai
Oh,
performance.
congratulations! You're in the middle of 12 other junglers.
That's 6 that he's above, right? At least that's good. Okay. If you're in the middle of any other league, you aren't above 6 players.
Watch out
But-
for Drizzle or Huey.
Point being, obviously, that
The point is that whatever. Okay, so the point is that he only really has had that. The reason why his Nunu and his Jarvan are so effective is because they create the zone for Crystal extremely well, and the front line takes off when Beast is able to have a lot of pressure top, so Flandre can do whatever he wants, and he can get super tanky or he can get really fed to create zones on like these Rumble and these Morgana picks in tandem with these Nunu and these Jarvan picks, okay?
So here's my question then.
So if you remove the Nunu and Jarvan, then Crystal is a lot harder to
just got
protect.
roasted.
So here's my question then. Is Snake... trying to think of the best way to phrase this.
Exposed.
Well, obviously exposed. The
They were
relationship-
exposed from the beginning!
No, the relationship between jungler and AD carry
Mm-hmm.
in LPL teams. Or, I mean, would you say that this is the most important relationship? Like, think about all the top LPL teams. Like, and Kelsey, I believe we're cannibalizing some of your content. I don't know if it's come out yet or it's coming out, but you brought up these points of that the best AD carries or the best junglers will have the best AD carries or the best teams will have the best AD carries on their team. Somehow this relationship...
No, this was my debut piece for the score, so you're good. Enjoy.
and just lead the conversation. I soft pitched it to you, and now I'm waiting for you to take over. I'm waiting for DreXxiN
So,
to push
my
you
point
down.
It's kind of like people say that
No,
Chinese...
wait, DreXxiN? I want to hear what DreXxiN has to say first, Miss
What
Score.
about AD carries being reliant on junglers and that being somehow the
No, that
Success
junglers
factor?
are reliant on having really good AD carries in LPL.
Oh.
Like, you think about the best junglers in LPL, like, historically, you
Name a
think
few.
you names that come out are, like, Jing, Clearlove. This is before, like, pre-Korean invasion, okay?
I love how
Oh,
came out.
okay.
Yes. Well,
Um,
the people that people talk about them as the best junglers. So, like, I'm not even coming out and saying that these are the best junglers, but the names that come up in discussions, like either the Chinese discussions or the Western discussions of who the best junglers in LPL traditionally have been. And people will say Jing, people will say Clearlove, people will say Loveling.
Yeah, but
Well-
like, was Loveling really like reliant
even
on
throw-
San being a beast? Because I mean, Loveling
In
was one of the
secondary?
first. Well, because Loveling was one of the first to bring out the whole like using Jarvan ulti as like a terrain like situation for zoning, and it's not like San was exactly the most stellar AD carry in
Yeah,
the
but there was
Universal and
like,
Stanley
if you
success.
go all the way back to spring 2000, or not spring, summer of 2013, like, Sand still looked pretty respectable. Like,
Perspectival.
he's either safe or, like, either really safe stable AD carries or really excellent AD carries.
I just feel like that criteria is like really broad. That's why that argument's a little bit confusing to me. Like I can see where you're
Well,
coming from, but
I mean, the
just with
thing is,
OMG
like, the
successes
reason-
specifically, it's confusing.
The reason that I will go there is because, like, you tower dive the bottom lane is kind of the criteria upon which we base our junglers. And so if your AD carry can survive that, or if you're an AD carry can capitalize on the fact that they have an early kill, or if you can execute, like, this 3v3 or 3v2 situation really well, historically in China, you have looked like a good jungler. And that's kind of been the criteria upon which people can assess junglers in China in terms of effectiveness. I don't think this is, like, any longer the case necessarily, but the fact that you have this idea that junglers are still playing around what kind of AD carry they have is relevant.
I mean, that's a plus and a weakness, though. I think in in Snake's case, that's actually a weakness because obviously once you ban out those zoning junglers, the team falls apart and Crystal doesn't know what to do. So I mean, success is based around success is based around like jungle and AD carry synergy in that sense, but I think it's also a weakness because then that gives you a drafting disadvantage.
Yes. So what does Snake need to do then, guys? What's that?
That's a good question. I just because I don't really know because you could say okay, well, Crystal could learn to be self-sufficient, but that's like something so easy to say. That's like akin to the whole like Kai just needs to expand his champion pool and be good and stuff. But so it's kind of like that kind of thing. Like you can't just make Crystal be self-sufficient.
Or they could give the peel to Baka.
So
And increase his role in being a zoning factor, as well as being a factor in the early game, because right now he just kind of sits in his lane and he does his own thing. He doesn't really become a factor until 5v5s, but if they give him some of the responsibility early and take off the pressure of Beast, whose champion pool has been limited, and then give him tools to make Crystal stronger, with
That's what I think. That's what I think too, because if you just try to change the whole dynamic of the team right now, this late into the season, you're not going to be able to rebuild your strategy fast enough to combat the other teams, so... It's not really as simple as just Beast enhancing his champion pool and Crystal learning to play more self-sufficiently. It's something else in the team needs to change to kind of cater to their current playstyle so they can win games again. Well, I shouldn't say it Snake's a horrible team now or something, just because they've been figured out. But it's it kind of reminds me of when Jiang was really strong in the mid lane, and then he was just crushing everybody, and then the science around his success was just discovered, and then all of a sudden he was just repeatedly trashed. That's kind of how I feel the Snake situation is going to snowball.
This is so. Yeah, I can kind of see that, but since our LSPL expert isn't here, let's give a brief history on how Snake used to play before, because this AD carry centric style is actually really new for them. They used to play a style centered completely around Flandre, and he would play kind of whatever champion he wanted to a ridiculous extent, like the AD LeBlanc top split pushing, the Fizz, whatever he wanted to play and whatever he could succeed on. And then they kind of just had Reborn focus on ganking his lane, and then he got really good at 2v1 and people figured out that they could just try to counter Snake style by 2v1ing. And so he would constantly be pulling pressure top lane with the split push while to essentially just stall out the game, because Crystal meanwhile would be bottom lane essentially either feeding or being completely controlled by Colin, their support at the time. And he would play these hyperscaling picks like Tristana or Kog'Maw, and eventually the game would just get to the point where even if you focus Crystal and even if he overextended, you could just two-shot people with this Kog'Maw pick. And you can kind of see how they were playing like that in the Snake versus Vici Gaming if we go all the way back. When Vasily kind of started mispositioning a little bit on the Kalista, and he would go up to Crystal, and Crystal could just auto-attack him a couple times on Kog'Maw and die. And they almost turned the game around in that fashion. So it still wasn't AD carry focused, but it was focused on getting him to this point where he could, in a self-sufficient weird way, compensate for his own mispositioning. And they were doing well in LSPL with that method, but we again projected them to not do super well in LPL with that. So I don't think moving away from giving him support is necessarily the best method to go. So again, so what you're saying makes a little bit more sense. Copy is actually a decent Orianna, or Baka, excuse me, because his name was Baka. Copy before.
We've talked a lot about how we would adjust and improve Snake. Let's flip to the other side. M3 has actually now started to get better. What have they adjusted and improved? We talked a little bit about Dreams Focus, we talked about Love CD. We haven't really talked about Dade.
Well, I did mention on Dade is that the team is now about finding situations where he can abuse the weakness on the other team and then setting him up to succeed, and they use Love CD and Dreams for that. Looper, I think actually we haven't really touched on at all.
Oh right, he's on that team.
And
yeah, I mean honestly I don't...
He's a bigger...
You don't even remember him?
For me, he's a bigger issue, because I think the only champions we've seen him succeed on all split are Gnar and Lissandra, and I think he's almost like the crystal or the... No, not the crystal, but the crystal or the Baka or the beast.
I don't know about
That's
that. Yeah,
M3.
honestly, that's a better comparison because, like, when I think of Looper, I don't think of him as like the major success point in any part of these teams compared to all these other top laners in LPL now that you always will point out as a key to success, like Koro, for instance, like or Flandre before he started playing Gnar and the team started doing weird stuff. But no, I don't know. Just with like Looper, I don't know. He just seems pretty non-existent in terms of the shift in the M3 success. Like, he just kind of exists there, like, as a static thing, not really contributing to what's actually changed on the team.
But I do think he's an abuse. I think he's an abusable weakness because if he doesn't have those champions, he does essentially like feed or have terrible teleports or whatever else. So against M3, I might ban like Kalista and then ban Gnar or Lissandra and see if I could pick the other one.
Okay. Our next one was World Elite. That's what we're supposed to talk about. Especially because IEM's coming up. We need hype up World Elite. We talk about how well they're gonna do.
They're gonna crush She Tigers.
Yeah.
Okay, World Elite finally, after being bitch slapped the entire LPL split,
Oh my god.
finally stood up and took one down. How did they do it? Why did it happen? What is their key to success? How will their future turn out?
Okay. How do I start with this?
Well, okay, where is World Elite strongest? Who's their strongest member?
Okay, Spirit by like a huge margin.
He's the spirit of the team.
Okay, so for anyone wondering, Spirit is actually I don't know if anybody agrees, but I think he's actually better than he was in Korea, and I feel like having to carry World Elite put him in this like hyperbolic time chamber thing because it's like he's literally just been like trying. I don't know how this guy hasn't like just like quit the team, obviously contracts or something, but like if you just watch them play, it looks like Spirit has to do so much for that team, and it's just like every single week he's like just carrying harder and harder, and I feel like I don't want to say the rest of his teammates are like stagnating, but like the scale on like the improvement of his team versus Spirit is just like so ridiculously offset. And it's just hilarious to watch. Like Spirit is probably, I'd actually say he's probably the best jungler in LPL right now, just because like if you put Spirit in his current condition on any other team, I feel like the amount of impact he can make would be enormous. Well, any other team that's like top 4, to put it that way. Let's just replace Chuen with Spirit and see what happens.
That's
Oh
based
my
on.
god.
That's based on. Let's talk about though the factors contributing to this. So you can say in a way that okay, the team finally figured out how to play with Spirit compared to the first week when he would like try to go in on things and they would just stand there and watch him. So there's something to following that. The other thing is though that the champion pool of like his champion effectiveness has increased. So he would play like these Jarvan picks or these Rengar picks or Riven, and then he would just play. But now he's able to see, okay, I literally have to be on the map at every single position at every given time. What champions allow me to do that? And luckily, DreXXI was released, Nidalee, and is no longer permabanned, so like, he's had some balance changes, or she's had some balance changes, so there's no longer the issue where she's banned every game. And Nidalee is released, and Nidalee is no longer also banned every game. So chances are that if the teams that he's facing, like since they haven't really caught on to this yet, that he can get one of those two champions, and either with like the high mobility from the Pounce or with the DreXXI tunnels and the DreXXI ultimate, he can be literally everywhere on the map at once. So
Are you going to change your avatar next week to Nidalee and DreXXI?
we can see it coming.
Okay. If Spirit's the strongest point, and that's why he's the strongest point, is Aluka then for sure the weakest point?
Aluka's an issue, yeah.
But what's the weakest, like if you had to pick one most defining, glaring issue of World Elite that needs to be addressed immediately, is it Aluka?
Yeah.
Probably.
Why?
I mean, because the only other person I could think of is Ninja, and I'm like, is Ninja that bad? Yeah, but Aluka.
What makes Ninja better than Aluka?
That's the conflict I'm having right now.
I think Ninja has found his inner aggression.
By playing
Well-
Ezreal mid.
Yeah,
Well-
did you see him go ham on Hatong? He was
Oh yeah, there's a that's
no,
what I'm
and
gonna
he
put
actually
on my resume. I
he
beat
even did
Hatong.
well against Rookie in like a counter matchup. Like I don't know.
Ezreal's actually has a high win rate right now. The problem is like I don't know. Ninja used to be the guy that just like literally did nothing and was just like kind of just existed in the mid lane, but he's not even
Needed
doing
to
well in the
get
champions.
camped.
Yeah, he's not even doing well in the champions that excel there. Like his Xerath, I don't think he's won a single game on Xerath, and he's played it 4 or 5 times.
That's a pretty easy call to
So-
make because I can count all of the wins World Elite have.
Yeah, well, okay, but okay. Right,
He's
but I mean,
historically okay. So
but
did
what
he
I'm saying
say?
is, in contrast, is he's won more games than he's lost on Ezreal mid. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he just has a stylistic like identity crisis or something. But
He's a poke-based mid laner. I feel like this is a statement that we can make.
But he can't play Xerath.
but he can't play Xerath. Yeah.
No, he can because like he used to play Xerath. Like Xerath used to
Well,
be.
he
his
can't
go-to-
anymore then because
No,
I don't know,
I
man.
still
He
think
said-
like his Xerath has been really hit or miss, but earlier on in the season, I think his Xerath was fine. Like the past couple times, he's been doing really well on like Anivia, Ezreal. The
It
one
is-
really obvious exception is like Cassidon.
Cassiopeia,
where
too.
he'll just break out the Cassidon and he'll do Cassidon things.
He
Well,
played
that shit's
Cassiopeia
not
too,
breaking out
and I think he
anytime.
actually won the games he played Cassiopeia on. So I don't know. It's hard to identify him, but like his most played is like the Poke champions, like Xerath, Jace, stuff like that. So and that's what he's familiar with. But at the same time, like yeah, I do feel like Ninja's a problem. I think it's hard to make this decision without a historical bias, just because I've
If
watched
you,
Aluka bring teams down for like the last 3 years.
If you
in terms
had
Positive
He's-
energy and
His
whatnot.
most effective champion is literally like Scion.
no, here's my question.
Where do you go with
This
that?
is how we're gonna do this. Okay, so you have Aluka, you have Ninja.
Yep.
You get going or whatever top laner of choice that you want here. It could be Flame, it could be going, it could be Acorn, it could be Flandre, whoever. You replace the top laner, rest of the lineup stays the same. Or you replace the mid laner and the rest of the lineup stays the same. You can replace this person with Cool, with Wayless, with Froggen, if you so please. Which team's better? The one where the mid laner is replaced or the one where the top laner is replaced?
Depends on which top laner. But if you
Why?
get like a carry top laner, I think that's a better team.
Carry top laner, specifically.
Yes, like if you get like a Flame, I think Flame would be really good on that team.
I don't know, because Aluka's been trying to play supporty like meta style, and doesn't.
Yeah,
look
but-
fancy. It's also Aluka. I don't know.
yeah,
I
that's
feel
what
like
I
he
mean.
misses
like,
rumble
he
ults
has a-
frequently and shit, so that's a problem.
And just dies 1v1
This is
for
actually
no reason.
this is actually kind of a hard debate on whether Ninja or Aluka is more trash. This is like
Looking,
This is
but
actually
looking
tough.
at the
We always rank like the top 380 carries or whatever. No, I want to rank the worst players in LPL.
But
Who
looking
is
at-
by far?
looking at the Ninja's track record, he's had these peaks, like these moments of effectiveness, and I think they're based on like he had the Lulu pick, which was really good last year in conjunction with Wei Xiao, and he's had like the poke that allows him to sit in back and not really be the focus and just like whittle down teams in fights from afar. So I think he's much more suited to like this bridge supportive style mid lane almost. And so for that to be effective, you either need like a beast of an 80 carry, or like a top lane carry. And
Yeah.
so that's why I think like Flame would be a good would make that team like pretty solid, and I think Ninja would be fine. He's able to perform like at least decently against like some mid tier and even some top mid laners, without just like bleeding gold, whereas like we talk about like sources of gold bleeding, like Aluka is up there for me. Other sources of gold bleeding are like Hatong, we mentioned him, and what I mean by that is like junglers are almost forced to camp the lanes with like Aluka and Hatong, even if there's like a clear lane that could be a better carry. Like I think in WE there's like STYZ is a clearer carry lane than like Aluka by far. And in Vici Gaming, it's like even you've got like you could camp like carry, or even like Vasily would be an upgrade. but you're forced to camp like Hatong so they don't just die repeatedly. Like, that's a huge issue. Just freeing up the jungle pressure by having a top laner that could even be like somewhat self-sufficient would make that team drastically.
Drastically. I like that word.
Drastically.
I actually kind of agree because, like, you can say one or the other is the problem, but I do think the best option would be. I mean, obviously, the best option would be to get a better player for both, but just stylistically, you can't have both of them play the way they do. You can't have one be like passive top lane or just strictly team oriented and not lane dominant, and then have Ninja just play his Pokechamps, and then Spirit's just forced to put all of the map pressure everywhere in the entire game. So
now here comes the question.
Okay.
Because we all know, no we don't. Before the IEM, before the IEM analysts roll in and they need a Chinese person, how do you defeat World Elite? Like, just this is what you would say to them. If Gambit or TSM walked up to you, DreXxiN and Kelsey, and said, "Please tell me how to beat World Elite," what would you say? What would you package?
I don't think they need to contact me. They don't even think they need to watch WE games. They just like they're gonna look at that lineup and they're like, the only player we care about is Spirit.
Kelsey.
Let's ban all of his let's ban all the good junglers.
It's a best of one. The better team does not always win in a best of one.
Yes, I know.
I would rather be safe than sorry in a double elim best of one tournament.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying that, like, I would tell them to ban, like, the powerful, high-mobility junglers, right?
Okay, so what
And
are
I don't
bans?
think that they even need to talk to me to know that. Like,
You get 3 bans. Kelsey, DreXxiN, what are you banning?
Blue side or red side?
Yeah.
Let's say you're blue side. So you get your target bans.
I guess you have to ban, because they will first pick them if you don't, so you have to ban, Nidalee, DreXxI.
Yep.
Bam.
And then I would ban, like, probably Ezreal. No, I wouldn't ban Ezreal. They don't pick Ezreal early enough.
Ezreal. Oh, yeah, that's true.
They don't pick it, like, super early, so I would ban some sort of safe top like some sort of tanky safe top laner, so like...
I don't even know about the...
Because I think that's usually
Nidalee ban. I'd probably replace Nidalee with Maokai.
You would let him... Okay, you just lost. GG TSM.
Wait, does Centaurn... Wait, Centaurn plays Nidalee, right?
No, but they'd first pick it because we're blue side, you said.
Ma'am, first pick goes to blue side.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm confused. I thought we were... Okay, forget what I said. Yeah, okay, Centaurn can pick Nidalee if he wants.
What? Okay. So who are you banning? Come on, this isn't this hard. Pre-package this shit.
I got
Make
confused!
a clip and just send it to them. You're banning DreXxI.
Okay, we banned DreXxI.
I just, like...
Do we ban Ezreal? I don't know. They don't really early pick it though. That's the thing.
You guys are...
It's not a priority. It just happens to be something Ninja prefers.
I would consider banning Leona just because I think that's like Yuja's most significantly his best champion.
But I don't know if TSM would. Hang on.
Well, I just mean like the amount of pressure that I think UJ can have is like significantly decreased, and I think that UJ is kind of like is a little bit useful in fights when you get right down to it. And TSM is going to want to pick fights, and I think Gambit is going to want to pick fights like around dragons. So banning Leona might actually be a good idea. I would also consider maybe even banning Jarvan, because though Jarvan isn't like a high mobility, high pressure, the fact that like Jarvan gives that team so much teamfighting utility because STYZ really excels when he has like some extra terrain that he can position around. So I would consider also even banning Jarvan.
So DreXxI, Jarvan, Ezreal? I don't know.
DreXxI, Jarvan, Kalista.
Kalista, sure. We'll do Kalista. Because like STYZ actually builds like the damage Kalista. It's pretty crazy. He does like a lot of damage with that champion.
Or DreXxI, Jarvan, Leona.
Yeah. I would go with Leona, actually.
I think Leona makes more sense than Kalista.
I would do Rek'Sai, Jarvan,
I would
Because
first.
Leona.
Because chances
and-
are Bjergsen could just like style a ninja and go kill
Yeah.
SUIZ anyway. So
The other thing is,
That's the way I
though,
see it playing
that
out in
I
my head.
think some teams are prone to make, like, the thing about ninjas and Nivea, though, like, that I almost would be cautious about is that if he does pick a Nivea, you get to this point against WE where they just wait for you to make these stupid mistakes because they're able to stall out the lane so hard. And then they can sometimes capitalize on it in a team fight because usually Spirit will always like find some way to get ahead and be stupid tanky. So I don't know. Just that kind of situation is also a concern. So I might also consider Anivia.
no, I wouldn't ban Anivia. I think I'm locked in on. No, my mind went blank again.
I do think the
Leona.
best option is the Jarvan, Rek'Sai, Leona, though.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. I think that covers.
We'll see if they ban it.
If they do, we know.
They're gonna like get crushed, and they're gonna be like, "What the fuck? This show is useless."
Why would you listen to China talk
Blacklist.
when wanting to beat a Chinese team? Because, like, obviously we're cheering for the Chinese team, so we're biased and evil. We hate everyone.
Cool. Okay, I guess you can leave that now. I'm like thinking. I'm like, well, you know, irrelevant to drafting.
I feel like my sarcasm wasn't really received in that instance.
That was really bad. Okay. Yeah, I am. Do we?
No,
Okay.
I think that the Western teams should succeed, and I think that they'll do well. Good luck. Please do not fall for Spirit's trickery.
I do want to see if SUIZ, since it's an international event, plays a little bit more controlled though, because we've seen this week he's been a little more controlled in how he plays, and he's also been buying wards for his team.
Yeah, what was that? He bought wards.
Yeah, I know. So I feel like SUIZ is like finding a bit of discipline and maturity in the team, which I think also might have helped their victories a bit. So I'm hoping on like an international setting when the pressure's on and whatnot, now that the team has grown up a little bit, that it'll be not a complete stomp. So I think SUIZ will be an interesting matchup against Turtle.
Okay. Moving away from Worldly, now let's talk about OMG versus EDG. Now, they split 1-1 as a recap. OMG has two different bot lanes. They run San and Xiang.
They said they'll also rotate in Law.
They run San and Xiang, and then they run Uzi and Cloud. And just to be clear, the San Xiang bot lane iteration of OMG won the first game, and then EDG beat OMG the second game with Uzi and Cloud.
Yep.
Take it from here.
Yep.
Trying to look
And
at the-
Cloud looks like Roy now. That's the only point I want to make.
Oh yeah, his hair.
Yeah,
We should probably
Roy-
talk about something more important though.
Okay, was this attributed to the bot lanes? Was this, because we talk about how sometimes the better team wins, and sometimes the other team just plays worse, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, was this EDG beating OMG, or was this OMG beating themselves?
Well, I think that in the first game, what I really liked was seeing OMG with their like original like duo threat, like kind of upper half of the map priority, because San and Jiang didn't even have to like really do well, even though they did, for that game to be won, because the way Pawn was abusing his matchup, like he was just crushing on Nidalee, and he just like lined up the entrance to Wraiths with just like a shitload of traps, and like no one could really touch him. And then you also saw Gagouin get a huge advantage, not because Koro was playing bad, but because Koro couldn't really do much. He just like got shoved out and ganked by Cool early on. So
It's worth noting that in the game where OMG won, there was a definite camp top, and then the game where EDG won, like, Koro got an early gank.
yep.
Do you think that's something specific to these two teams? Like, getting their top laner
I
ahead?
think that Gagouin and Koro at this point are both top laners that can have a really huge game impact while being ahead. So, like, because immediately Koro transitioned to, like, a teleport bottom and a skirmish and got the bottom lane ahead, too.
And also, I think I want to say that oddly enough, I feel like Koro did a little bit more while behind, because this was like a big camp fest this entire series for top lane, and even when Koro was like pretty far behind, he actually landed some really key equalizers in the game to almost come back, even though he was like, what was he, like 0-4, 0-5 or something in the beginning?
Koro's used to playing from behind.
There was
Yes. Yeah, he is.
I believe,
It's
I'll have
always
to double
his-
check, but I think
his
that
trademark.
the first game, like the time between the first game and the second game, EDG ended the game like 10 or 15 minutes earlier
Yeah.
than
Yep.
OMG won the first game.
Mhm.
I mean, do you think something attributes to this? Is this
I think
EDG reflecting how adaptive they are as a team, or anything like that? Can you make any of that statement from this?
for me the key difference is that we saw Cool make some positional errors mid lane. We saw Loveling and Cool make some positional errors mid lane, in which we had Mako get some roams with the Veigar, we had Clear Love move, and then of course like there was the solo kill that Pawn got, and when Cool was in the river, like he had this really bizarre path, and like I couldn't see where he started out, so I had to rewind and watch the minimap, but he was like going through lane to try to find a roam top or something, and then Pawn just like killed him.
He's just getting
because
it, yeah.
he was like in the middle of a minion wave. So like these weird positional errors that OMG was making early, I think they made like some of the same positional errors around the bottom lane and also the mid lane in the second game. But EDG identified those, I think, and picked different champions. They picked champions that snowball incredibly well. They went from like the Rumble Corki to the Kassadin Jinx. And so you think about like what the difference is between those two sets of champions getting early kills, and then EDG was just like able to destroy with like to do more with OMG making those early missteps because they changed their champion picks.
And also, yeah, I agree with EDG being really adaptive when they switched out, which is really smart of them, and I was really happy to see that. But on another note, I feel like Clearlove actually did pretty well in this set, even from an early ganking perspective, because I think that had Mako not missed a like really key event horizon, like if he didn't miss his stun, I feel like that bottom lane would have snowballed really, really well for EDG. Because if you go back and watch that gank, he comes at like a perfect angle, and then the stun just like straight up misses, and then he has to walk back, and then he falls behind because of that, and it opens up the door for Loveling to start the snowball top lane.
Speaking of Event Horizons, we cannot continue without talking about Mata this week on Veigar.
Or Lei.
No, Mata.
You didn't see Lei. Did you watch that game?
I
Oh my
watched
God.
all of the games. Mata.
I really liked both of their Veigars though.
Oh, something else that really bothered me in terms of like, because when you brought up Mata or when you brought up Veigar, I was thinking
Like I
about
love
Lei and how
Mata's
he.
and Lei's Veigars.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you brought up Veigar, I remembered Lei building a like a relic shield, and that reminded me of like builds in the OMG vs EDG set, and I thought it was really, really weird for was it EDG that had Jarvan that game?
Cool. Are you talking about the Mercurial Scimitar?
No, I'm not talking about cool Scimitar TF, because that actually kind of makes sense. But I think
That was amazing.
but they built like they rushed like an early Aegis on Jarvan, and I don't know why they did that, because first of all they weren't team fighting at all. OMG didn't have much magic damage, and the game was the big game basically revolved around Pawn just going around and murdering everyone by himself. So I don't know. I felt like that was like really weird how he itemized that game.
Yeah, I think their use of the Nidalee pick was really weird too. Like it got really ahead, but then they weren't able to like position. I think that's part of it was the event horizon, because when you have like a Nidalee Veigar sort of composition, you want to hit those event horizons so that you can get this free like Hovland touch damage. And I just like was really disappointed in Mako's Veigar and the consistency at which he was able to hit those.
I think it's all about sieging. If you walk up to the tower, you place the event horizon around it, you get the free tower.
Yep.
Likewise, if Pawn's standing on the side, chucking spears.
Yep.
That's
That's why I loved King's Veigar, because they had like the Nidalee, and they had the Xerath and the Siege and the hitting of the skill shots.
I did really appreciate because I don't really know what goes behind the scenes in terms of scrims with OMG right now, but I do really appreciate that they decided to like wait this long to like experiment with that bottom lane duo. It was like it's kind of interesting that they rolled with Uzi for so long, and then in like potentially the hardest
Most
matchup they
important
have,
game.
yeah, they bring out Sanjiang, which is interesting. It just shows that OMG has balls.
Well, didn't they also
So-
change their coaching staff?
I mean, I'm not sure how long this Korean coach has been with the team because I know that they changed their coaching staff early and they wouldn't really say like who, and then it came out later that they have a new Korean coach. So I want to say that the Korean coach has actually been with the team the whole time. So that they just like it just came out who he was exactly. So I don't really know for sure, but that would be my suspicion. The other thing is that I think that they were just really trying to make UZI work. And I think UZI is still like the ultimate end goal, but while they're working him into the team and while they're trying to find the synergy, a lineup with San is ultimately more comfortable and going to perform a little bit better and free them up to play more like the way they want to play.
Yeah, but that wasn't really an issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, if
I know
you're
it
making the
wasn't
statement
necessarily,
that
like-
like San Xiong is there as like a safety net because it allows them to net free points or to maintain their standing. Like with the Uzi, they only dropped. I mean, they're still really high consistently in the standings. So I don't think of that as like a valid reason that they would go to that bot lane. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Like they didn't need
Even
a
against
safety net.
DDG?
Yeah,
I
they,
think-
they didn't need
but
a safety net.
I
And
think when they
hadn't
use
been
some-
tested.
I think when they use Sun and Jiang, they
I
don't feel the need to prioritize putting a lot of emphasis onto the bottom lane, and it showed in their play. Like they seem so much more comfortable with just leveling, snowballing top, and cool applying pressure on the map, and just the top half of the map having the spotlight and going around and being the main factor, while Sun is just solid. And then if you look at Uzi, it was completely different. It's like if you fail to get him ahead, then like obviously it just goes downhill. So I mean, I actually do think that it was a legitimate reason, just because you saw like maybe it's not the players' fault themselves, but the mentality the team has with San as opposed to Uzi is just completely different and looks a lot more healthy.
No, I agree with that. I think that their playstyle was much better. I just don't think that the statement of it's a safety net and allows them to experiment with Uzi is correct.
think that what I'm saying is that like it doesn't allow them to experiment. That's not like the words I was using. I was saying that while they're figuring out UZI, playing with San like makes in big important matches makes sense to me, just because right now that like to me a lineup with so originally it came out to me, and I'm not sure how I would have perceived it if I knew that they were running San Xiang, probably differently, but the way I was originally told was that San and Cloud would be playing. And so in my mind, I thought, oh, okay, they could actually take a game, whereas before I was thinking it's going to be a 2-0 in favor of EDG, just because the way that lineup has played and how comfortable that lineup is, and the different way that that lineup is able to like compensate where its flaws are, things like that, has been very strong in the past, like last year. So I think that of that lineup as right now a better lineup. Whereas like the difference is that I think UZI and Law, or even UZI and Cloud, and I don't have that immediate reaction. I don't have the reaction of thinking that, oh, they could take a game. I think that, oh, it's going to be disorganized because UZI is a team fighting AD carry that like requires a lot of peel, and OMG likes to pick composition type assassins with like these engage specific top laners that create pick environments with zone control, and I don't know, like that's I guess my explanation for how I think, oh, okay, if that's the way it's going to be, then why not play a game with San against the best team in China right now?
Anything
I think
else?
I think it's also kind of hard to wrap this up as like a safety net, quote unquote, until we see how they use their roster rotation in the future, or if they even do. Because I mean, that's the first time we've said it, or the first time we've seen it, so it's kind of hard to jump to conclusions. So, I mean, in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably be able to identify a little better, like, what situation they use those roster lineups when. So.
Any other statements?
Negative.
Do we want to talk about any other teams?
I just want to talk about their supports really quickly also. I think that the statement that the support rotation could allow them to have more strategies actually makes sense, because I do think Cloud's champion pool is limited, which is something that a lot of people might not realize. And Loa plays like more of the all-in type style, though definitely his skill shots aren't that great, and we have no idea what Xiang is all about, but my guess is that he'll have a limited champion pool in support because he had a limited champion pool in mid. So
as long as he gets a purple champion, man, he'll be fine.
So this is how
His
it's gonna
Morgana
work.
was insane, dude.
Plus
Like-
1 Baron taking stats.
They're like,
Yeah.
okay, we need a Morgana, so we're gonna play Xiang. We need a Thresh, so we're gonna play Cloud. Okay, it's time for Annie. Get.
Yeah,
Is
that's
this
kind
how
of
this is gonna work?
Maokai.
Maokai.
I was pretty impressed with Xiong, though, honestly. I thought his Morgana game was really good.
Was really good.
But
I actually
I'd have to see him play other champions before I assess his
the
actual
turning
support.
point was like the skirmish in the top lane where he landed a binding, so he had like a
had a
definite
flat-
impact
Oh
on
god,
that game.
I wish we did this earlier because I can't fully remember the games. I think he had like a flash binding at Baron that was really good too.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean he showed that he can be pretty clutch, and that's actually pretty impressive given it's like his first professional debut as a support. So
They call it the running man bot lane. I don't really understand why. If someone could explain, I would appreciate it.
can't help you there. I'm sorry.
Anything else?
No,
Nothing?
I don't think so.
You guys got
Unless
nothing?
do you have any other topics?
No, it was a fast and easy, quick and dirty.
Did anything interesting happen with King?
Oh, King and M3 played a set in Demacia Cup. I wanted to do a plug for Demacia Cup because it's now moved to the round of 16, so we're getting to see more interesting matchups. We'll see IG versus LGD, and these are best of 5s. So IG versus LGD is this week. I'm not sure what else is this week, but it should be pretty interesting.
I'm trying to think of some,
by the
trying to
way.
think of anything that happened interesting with King. I know they played against EDG.
Yeah, they won a game against EDG.
Yeah, they did. Yep, I remember now.
And they won a game against VG Gaming.
They're
Like
roaming
King had
I can't get on the King. I don't want to get on the King hype train again. I've been
There's
burned
still-
too many times.
And if you watch the series against M3, it went to 5 games, but they're still making the same stupid draft mistakes. Like, they should have won the 5th game because they got their momentum going after the 3rd and 4th game wins, and they had, like, the Aurelia and Ari pick in the 4th game, and they were just going to town with their solo laners, and then the 5th game comes out, and they pick Jarvan for top lane, and Vayne Fiddlesticks bottom lane. Not even OMG's drafts are that bad. Like,
Mad? You mad at Phils?
straight up.
Mad?
I have no idea why they did that, but they just got trounced in the 5th game, so...
Hello?
Yeah, M3 advanced to round of 8, but they have to face EDG to get to round of 4, so they're probably done.
Yep.
Oh, and we 3-0'd SPG, which you guys might not know anything about Standpoint Gaming, but they're actually
We
a
don't
respectable...
have Raz on the show. We can't talk about LSPL.
They're actually a respectable LSPL team, and I think that was surprising to people that WE 3-0'd SPG, so...
I definitely think they're looking a little better. I don't think they're going to finish top 8 even, but
I don't
it
know,
at least doesn't
Starhorn
look
Red
like
Club's trying real hard to make that a possibility.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hashtag free Name. This is our last weekend without Name, guys. Praise be.
Watch him just get in and just like feed out of his mind, like 0-9.
Please.
Food
For the love of
poisoning.
God. This will be our new era of Name feeding and making us look terrible.
It's gonna really fucking suck if that happens, by the way, because nobody's ever gonna believe the pedigree that Name had. It's like, oh, he had a bad world? Oh, well, maybe he'll come back. Oh, there's an English like broadcast made by Riot, so like now we can watch LPL and it'll be all mainstream and stuff. Oh, look, Name's sucking here too. I guess he was never good.
Yeah, I'm going back and I'm watching these 2013 VODs.
No one cares, hipster Kelsey.
By the
Everyone
way,
smile
Papa
and
Smithy,
wave.
okay, Sicko was playing
on.
that entire time.
Got shoutouts, yo.
Oh, right, shoutouts. DreXxiN.
Go ahead.
Papa Smithy.
Okay.
You're like a fair Papa Smithy.
Okay, so shout outs to Papa Smithy, who's currently, like, his name is hovering over my box for some reason this episode. I don't know
Sorry.
why, but good job, Mr. Papa Smithy. And also, what else do I want to do?
Oh
yeah. Shout out to Esports Heaven. Sorry I haven't made much content lately. We're actually completely overhauling the site and making it more modern and really nice. It's going to be really sick when it's done, so it's taking a lot of my time, but I promise I'll return to content creation as soon as that's a little more settled.
Watch out, on gamers.
Which gives me another shout out to Jacob Bray LCS, who's been like a huge help in that regard. And then also, apparently, Altech's going to be a support now. That's a little random factoid, which is weird. But okay, there you guys go.
Kelsey?
Um,
Can you beat Alltech as a support?
Interesting.
The next from you.
So I guess my shout out will be to the score for letting me write things. I don't know what's going on with my writing right now. Some stuff. Also, I am now full-time in the East-Rats.
That's what I was going to say. Shout out to you for that. Holy shit. Why have you not been a full-time writer for so long?
I just want to make something really
job,
clear
Kelsey.
to people who may not understand this. Kelsey, for the last, year, has been doing esports. We say it's not been full-time, but she commits full-time hours to esports writing, and for the amount of content that she produces, she writes more content than Fion and Nilu right now, at least for their production through the score. As well as doing a full-time 40 hours a week to a finance job. Like a desk white collar job. So she's been putting in 80 plus hours of just straight work. And this is the first day where she left the real world, this incredibly well-paying job at this very stable economic place with a 401k and retirement plans and ability to
the score takes care of me, okay? It's
to
not like
follow
I'm
her dream.
So, that rant just happened. Also, yeah.
We're praising you. Oh my god, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Oh my
you guys
god,
are very
they said
nice.
something
How
nice
can you?
about me.
You guys are nice. Yeah. Also, I might just do a video on the OMG bottom lane really quick. In time for it. There are 3 series this weekend. So.
Okay, with that, because I really want to take a nap, wave.
Bye, guys.
Bye.